Hey, welcome everyone to today's episode of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Well, a couple weeks ago, we had the school board elections. And lo and behold, we had some surprises, some things that didn't happen the way they would normally have happened. We're going to talk a little bit about that on this week's episode of the State of Greater Western New York Report. And of course, each week we're brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard. The Bend and Honeylake Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York Report, Chris Carosa.
And here I am, and there you are. Thanks again for watching this week, the State of Greater Western New York Report. We've got a very interesting guest to talk to. Her name is Nancie Orticelli, and she's the president of the Constitutional Coalition of New York State, which does a lot of interesting things. We'll get into that in a second. But they were very prominent. They played a very prominent role a couple of weeks ago in the school board elections. And we'll tackle that in the second half of the show. But first, let's just talk to Nancie. So, Nancie, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
So thanks for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up being the president of the CCNYS.
Sure. So when we first started getting involved into politics, we, meaning my husband, myself, a bunch of our friends, we were members of an organization called SCOPE, which was Shooters Committee on Political Education. It was a Second Amendment only group. And we were very involved in a bunch of things that had to do with the Second Amendment. But what we found is that if you're a one-issue organization and a one-issue voter, you kind of tend to compromise a little bit on other points of freedom and liberty and maybe other points of the Constitution. So we, in our Erie County chapter, morphed into a constitutional group instead of just a Second Amendment group. And I was not the first president. There were two presidents before me. I was the secretary, a very feminine job. A lot of people say, oh, only the women can be secretaries, but that's not true. And I'm a testament that you can become a president of an organization as well from a secretary. So we started getting involved in things like education and activism. That's our mission statement. We like to educate people on the Constitution. And then based on what we've learned in our education, we promote activism, whether that means letter writing campaigns, phone campaigns, advocating for a constitutional candidate for political office, or protesting, rallying, whatever that means. We take what we've learned from the Constitution and try to put into action what we've learned. And so we're not really interested in being a do-nothing group. We're interested in putting feet to our actions and our words. So that's what we do.
So this sounds very familiar to another guest that we had, a couple of guests we had on last year that were involved with the Constitutional County effort in Cattaraugus County. Have you been duplicating any of that or working with them in any way?
So you're probably referring to Brenda Hansen and all the people in Cattaraugus County. She's a great colleague. What we do in our coalition is we try to organize different grassroots group and network and get those groups to work together. We don't have one main objective like, Second Amendment or school boards or, what have you. We try to get groups together. So we were working with Brenda in the Cattaraugus County group just by sharing their initiative. As far as Erie County, I don't think that there's anything in play right now in getting Erie County to be a constitutional sanctuary. We haven't heard of anything, at least, about that. But if anybody wanted to do that, we would be more than happy to help. facilitate that, because we like to work with all different groups.
How about within Erie County? I know that there are some towns that did pass something similar to this constitutional thing, although it was probably focused more on health issues and the mask mandates.
Correct. The town of Marilla, and the supervisor, Skip Dindrich, he and his board released a statement that they would not be following the mandates, that they are a constitutional town. The town of West Seneca's supervisor didn't go so far as to say that they were not complying, but they did put out a statement saying that it was unconstitutional for our county executive to issue the mandates. And we also have a mayor in Williamsville, New York, Mayor Deb Rogers, who she has taken a stand against these draconian mandates from a tyrannical government, and they refuse to comply in the mask wearing department of their meetings. I don't want to say they refuse to comply. She left it up to an individual's choice, free choice. If you want to wear a mask, great. If you don't. And as a result, our county executive fined the village of Williamsville $300 for not complying. So yeah, we have a lot of local leaders here in Erie County, in this part of Western New York, who are taking a stand, and it's very encouraging for the people, because I know the narrative of the press is that the people in New York who lean more towards the right, or who lean more towards constitutionally minded government, we're in the minority. But with these leaders speaking up and different grassroots organizations popping up, we're finding that to not be the case, and it's really energizing our base.
That's actually something I wanted you to talk more about. What we've seen is that certainly there's an underrepresented community out there when it comes to the press. And I admit, I'm part of the press. We have a paper, we do this show, and we try to report everything that we can find. But it does seem like not everybody gets their fair share of news coverage. Can you kind of take us into that area? Tell us a little bit about what the people feel about maybe not hearing their voices pronounced as loudly as other people's voices.
So it's funny that you're asking me this question, because this last week, due to the school board elections, in our press release, we have received a ton of negative press from our local media sources. There have been numerous articles written about me personally, about our coalition, about Western New York Students First, about our conservative politicians and leaders here in the area. And it's insane, because it's mostly fabrication and lies that are easily refuted. So when you hear those stories, and you read those stories and watch those stories, it's very easy to get discouraged. So personally, I am making it my mission to issue a rebuttal to each story that is being posted and written about us, and taking it line by line and showing the facts, and trying to get people to share that on all social media platforms, because I don't think we're going to be able to influence the media. We have to almost take it upon ourselves to write the truth and to refute the lies that are out there. And I made a video refuting the lies of this local newspaper media outlet here in the Buffalo area, and it's been shared hundreds of times, and it actually was a call to action for the people to go to the website and the social media pages of this organization and demand a retraction, and to just expose the lies. I think that's the only way. And I don't want to say we on the right, I want to say people in the middle, people who represent everybody in the United States of America, no matter what your race, religion, political affiliation, gender. I think that's what we need to start doing. We need to start exposing, and we all know that the media lies, but we still all fall for the media's lies. So it takes people, normal citizens like us, to try to get the word out and open people's eyes to what the fallacies are, and to also what the absolute truth is, by showing our side of the story as well. And hopefully there's some kind of happy medium where we can get more representation for people on the right and in the middle.
So give me an example of what you would suggest someone to do if they feel like their voice isn't heard, or they're not being represented properly in the media? What can a regular person do?
This is where grassroots organizations come into play. There are grassroots organizations everywhere now. I mean, if there is any good that came out of lockdown, it's the fact that the people have organized. And if you are just, like you said, a normal citizen with you don't have any resources or connections or any networks to try to have your voice heard, I suggest that you get a hold of a local grassroots organization that you see has been mentioned in the press and see if they could help get your story out. We have a gentleman who got a hold of our group a couple of weeks ago who's graduating from a SUNY school, and they weren't going to let him walk across the stage to get his diploma unless he was vaccinated. However, they were allowing people to attend the actual ceremony unvaccinated. It didn't make sense. So we got a hold of our group. We started spreading the word. People started writing letters. Now he's being allowed to walk across the stage. So my suggestion is to really get in touch with the grassroots organizations and see if they can help in getting your story out or making your voice heard, especially from a conservative standpoint, because no one's talking about conservatives in the media. And if they are, it's in a way that is detrimental and that is divisive to the citizens of the United States of America. And we need to start having a balance coming back into play, especially where our media is concerned, because they're the voice of the people right now.
Right. So let's bring this back to Western New York and your group, the Constitutional Coalition of New York State. What is there a regional footprint? Is this just Erie County? Is it the entire state? Is it concentrated more in one area of the state than the other? Tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us how people might be able to learn more about it.
Okay. So we started in just Erie County, Niagara County, and Chautauqua County. And so we wanted to be a coalition that talked about and fought for the rights of the entire state. So we are located in Erie County, but we don't have, we realize we don't have the time or the resources to kind of control everything that happens in the entire state. And we were really looking for another organization to come under, like sort of an umbrella to be able to get our voice out there in a larger capacity. So we just recently joined another coalition called the People's Coalition for New York State. They organized just this last November. They're located downstate, and they have over 500,000 people on their email lists. And so what we do is we encourage grassroots groups like ourselves to unite under the People's Coalition so that we can unite in our efforts together. If other groups want to know what other groups are doing and join in, that's what they do. But we are focused mostly here in Western New York, just because we all work and have full-time jobs. Activism doesn't pay, and we don't want it to, because we want to fight for the freedoms and liberties of people. It's not a career, it's a movement. And so we do what we can here. We work very closely with groups in the Monroe County area. We work very closely with groups in Cattaraugus County, in Chautauqua County, and now it's going to be, I believe, Wayne County, the Moms for Liberty group there. And so we just, our footprint is here in Western New York in the Erie County, Niagara County area, but we do help everybody across the state because we're all in this together. And if we're not organized and unified, we're not going to get anything done.
So if somebody wants to look into your group, how would they do that?
So we are on Facebook, the Constitutional Coalition of New York State. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. And you can email us at CCNYS@USA.com. And we email people maybe once or twice a week, just updating people on things that are happening around the state with our other grassroots organizations. And we do have a radio show every Monday night, 6 to 8 p.m. on WEBR 1440 AM. You can listen on Odyssey.com app. You can listen If you trust Siri or Alexa, you could say, hey, play WEBR, and we're on Monday nights, 6 to 8 p.m., where we update people on things happening in the state, in our region, federally sometimes, and we do give people information on how to get connected with different like-minded groups in your area. We're not interested in being this huge monolith group. We're interested in helping other groups grow and unite together. Because like I said, if we're not in this together, what's the point of doing this? You're not going to be effective if you're just doing this for fame or money. And you know, I look back to the founding fathers and none of them got paid for doing what they did. So we just try our best to do what we can here. And like I said, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, you can find us on any of those platforms. CCNYS@USA.com.
All right, Nancie, thank you. We'll be right back after this message to talk about some specific issues that her group has been involved with.
Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. 50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard. Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com.
Okay, we're back. Thanks. Nancie surprised me there. I was thinking about what you said before in terms of the coalition of these groups within the Greater Western New York region. And I'm curious, I know you're involved or you've touched on a lot of different issues and subjects, but can you just throw out a couple of them that are really predominantly Western New York oriented as opposed to, say, the entire state? Have you seen things like that?
You're talking about different issues that are just predominant here in Western New York. Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Well, obviously the school board issue was huge within the last couple months. And that wasn't just exclusive to New York or Western New York. That was, federal across the entire state, nationally. But the Second Amendment is a huge issue in New York because we do have the SAFE Act and it's absolutely unconstitutional. And so I do know a lot of groups fight, for our Second Amendment rights to not be infringed. And so we have Second Amendment, we have school boards. And I think the reason why the school boards were such a huge issue this last year, in the last few months, especially since last summer, is because people started doing virtual school in their homes, no choice of their own. And school was literally streamed directly into our living rooms, and we were able to see exactly what was happening with our schools. And I think that we see a lot of just absolute insane policy, insane curriculum coming through that probably has been there longer than we realize. We just didn't realize before. And now we realize this is probably why the trend in political affiliation has started to go more towards the extreme left for our young people in colleges, because we didn't realize the indoctrination that was happening at a lower level in the schools, because we just didn't know. We assumed our schools were taking care of our children and teaching them, educating them, not indoctrinating them. So right now, that is the biggest issue that I see in these grassroots groups, especially here in New York.
Yes, and we'll get to a little bit more about that. And I certainly from a reporter standpoint. We've seen that across well more than the greater Western New York region. But in terms of here locally or within New York State, can you give us a couple of examples of some of the curriculum items that may have made parents think twice about what they were sending their kids to?
Well, we all know CRT, and that's such a hot topic and it's a touchy subject because, of course, we want to learn the truth about our history here in the United States. We want the truth. We're not trying to sugarcoat anything. We're not trying to have an unequal balance as far as history is concerned. One of the things I said to a reporter last week was, because they said, you don't want to learn about slavery. And I said, when have we not learned about slavery? I'm 46 years old, and I absolutely remember when I was in school learning about the atrocities of slavery and learning about what happened and how, this group of people came through and won their freedom, rightly so. It's not like it's something that's been kept under a rock since the inception of the United States of America. We all know about it. Movies have been made about it, for God's sake. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand why they're saying we have to teach about slavery. Nobody knows about it. We absolutely know about it. What I don't agree with, and most parents do not agree with, is the fact that when you are learning about this in public schools now, there's teachers that are leading movements for students to write pledges and make apologies saying, I apologize for being white. I apologize for what happened to you. I don't think we need to apologize for something we didn't participate in. And I'm not going to apologize for the way that I was born. I didn't choose to be white. That is not my choice. I wasn't born and said, this is what I'm going to be. This is how God made me. So why would I apologize for that? And it's like the pendulum is swinging so far left. We're talking about equality among men and women and human beings. And CRT does not teach that. CRT teaches shame for who you are, shame for how you were born. And I'm not here for that. I'm here for telling the truth about history and recognizing that, yes, there's a lot in our history that was wrong. I don't have to apologize for it because I wasn't there, but I can acknowledge that it was wrong and then move on. But they're taking it to the extreme, and it's not okay.
So this is actually interesting. And this has been a common complaint that we've heard, again, across the region, even across the country. Certainly, you saw this manifest itself in the statewide elections in Virginia. Is this a part of mandated curriculum, or is this a local school district choice, or is this just a teacher choice? Have you researched that at all? And could you maybe help us understand how these sort of lessons come to the forefront?
So, yeah, I have heard, different teachers and different educators say that it's not a particular curriculum, that there's not this CRT curriculum module, but there is CRT ideology interspersed with different subjects and different lessons taught. For example, in math, you would have a math problem, and the problem would be written in such a way that it would show something that has to do with CRT. Same with English. Same with, there's no subject that's called CRT. It's just a way to sprinkle the ideology throughout different lessons of different subjects. It's not, I don't believe it's mandated. I believe a teacher has a choice whether or not to utilize that, but I do believe if it's not mandated in New York, it's going to be soon. And that's not the only issue here with the schools and what they're teaching. We do know that there are, different sex education subjects where we're exploring different sexual preferences. And I do not think that is the school's responsibility whatsoever. I think that is a family and a mother and father's responsibility to teach that to their children. We don't need to teach our children what different sexual preferences are, because where's the line then? Where is the line drawn? and how far do you go with that? I do believe in teaching basic biology and, basic reproduction lessons. Beyond that, as far as preferences, that's not the school's job whatsoever. That is grooming children for sexual exploitation, actually.
Well, there are certainly a number of issues that people have shown concern about at the school district level. And let's now focus on the school board. To what extent can the school board take action with regards to all these issues? And I'll throw another one that came up in our town hall meeting, which is the requirement by 2035 that all school buses be electric, which is a potentially onerous monetary requirement for rural districts where the school buses have to go out in far areas. In Livingston County, we saw all the superintendents sign a letter to this effect, and also with regards to health, and send it to Governor Hochul. So that's the superintendents. What can school boards really do to begin to, reflect the community consensus on these issues? Do they have any power at all?
So I've had a lot of pushback this week, not just from the left, but even on people from the right, saying that it was a waste of time for us to try to get people elected to school board, that, you have a school board maybe made up of 9 members and you get 1 member on there. What good can that person do? A lot of defeatist attitudes, a lot of negativity. And what I've been focusing on the last couple of weeks and what we've been telling our group is you don't climb a mountain in one giant leap. You have to get a toe hold, you have to get a hand hold, you take the next step and the next step and the next step, and then you climb the mountain. But you have to get that toe hold. And getting one person elected is a toe hold. It's a victory. It's a victory against, the machine. It's a victory against the unions who have spent millions and millions of dollars to keep a lot of us out. And if it wasn't lucrative to be on the school board to be effective, why did they spend so much money to fight those patriots who were trying to get on school boards? And I'm going to quote from my friend Kelly Hunter. She ran for school board here in Hamburg, New York, did not win, but she said, currently we have nearly an entire state full of people who are on the school boards who have a direct line to the to the legislature. And she said that once we get one person on that board, you're starting to be able to have a voice. And she said, if we can change the compliant, silent Board of Education right now, who do lobby the ledge, put pressure on the local unions who are in agreement with local decision making and are willing to file suit, then we can begin to shift the balance of power. She says it's not an overnight job. It could be a decade or more in the making. However, the ultimate goal is to change the top-down, heavy-handed state control back to local school districts where parents, teachers, and admins make decisions that are best for their unique community. You have the union who and I'm not anti-union. If the union's going to run a person running for the school board who is conservative, who is in the middle, who represents every family in the district, who has the children's best interests at heart, then I'll help that union-backed candidate, absolutely. But it's not the case. It's not the case in most districts, and we need to start taking it back little by little for the people in our unique communities, not just for the entire state, but for our local communities.
Right. So let's talk now about what actually happened. So your group and several other of these coalition groups, I'm taking it, did support specific candidates who kind of began this challenge, maybe who sought to be that first step, as you say. So approximately how many candidates were you actively supporting? And of those, about how many actually won?
So in our coalition, like I had stated before, we aren't interested in being the end all for one specific subject. We recognize that other people may be called to take something on. And if they are called to do that, we will help. So there's an organization here in our area called Western New York Students First. And they are a group of people. They became a 501c4 this last year. And they started advocating actually in the beginning of lockdown to get kids back into school, to advocate for students' rights. And after lockdown, they decided they would like to continue in representing students, families, and local districts. And so they came up with, a really good plan, a really good flow chart as far as, vetting candidates, having a core belief system as far as what they like to see happen in the schools. So we thought to ourselves, why would we try to reinvent the wheel? Let's just back them up and support them. And we know a lot of them personally. We trust their judgment. And so they would come to us with different candidates and say, hey, Nancie, hey, Coalition, could you share a call to action for, the specific candidate? They need people to go door to door. Or could you share this email? Or could you share this on your social media? So that was pretty much the extent of our involvement. It was helping Western New York students first. And I believe we had overall, Western New York students first, I think they had 11 wins overall. I'm not sure how many they personally endorsed. We didn't endorse we don't really endorse, but we didn't support every single one of their candidates, but most of them we did. And then we also helped with Concerned Citizens Alliance, which is located in Monroe County. We helped a lot of people there share their candidates. And so total, I believe we had about 21 wins. And a lot of people say, well, some of those were union backed. We still won. Conservatism and parent choice still won, regardless if they were backed by the unions or not. And so we were very pleased with those results.
I was going to actually ask you about that. Do you have a sense for what percentage of these candidates were what might be called outsiders coming in, and what percentage maybe came in, like you say, through the normal channels? I mean, I know sometimes it's very difficult for schools to even get school board candidates, so they're really, going out there and trying to convince people to run. So how many people, came in through traditional methods, and how many really came in as outsiders?
So out of the 21 wins, I'm just estimating here. I know that there's maybe 4 that were backed by the union. The other ones, I believe, were just outsiders, just moms and dads who decided to get involved, which is awesome because this wasn't a typical election year for school boards. People usually don't care. It's usually the incumbents that get in every single time. And so these parents really campaigned almost as if it was, because I've been involved in different campaigns, Senate campaigns, Assembly campaigns. These campaigns for these school boards were right up there at that same level. Intense. The mudslinging was insane. The bad press. I give these people a lot of credit. They don't have a background in politics. They never got involved before. And for them to enter into something so absolutely it was almost vicious, these attacks, and to last until the end. And some of them won, some of them didn't, but they all maintained their integrity throughout it all. So I would say the majority of the percentage of them were just moms and dads who decided that they'd had enough. And it was interesting in Akron, New York, because in Akron, there were 2 candidates and they were not being challenged. They were 2 parent choice and student first candidates. They were not being challenged at all. And then 2 weeks before the election, and they didn't campaign because they weren't being challenged. But 2 weeks before the election, the union got their money together, got their troops together, and started campaigning for their own candidates and put a lot of money behind these 2 people, a lot of effort. We eventually won. But my point is, these unions are running scared for a reason. And so don't think that these school board elections and one win isn't effective because these unions wouldn't be so scared and wouldn't be putting so much money and effort behind this if this wasn't an effective thing to do for the citizens of New York State. It's huge.
I have a question. So our newspaper covers essentially southern Monroe County, northern Livingston County. it didn't seem like any of these issues really played up in the school board races here. There was opposition. I mean, it wasn't like a slam dunk case of just voting for the same person because nobody was running against them. Do you have any idea why some of these school races were quiet as opposed to the ones you're talking about that were quite loud?
I think it might even have to do with the fact that maybe some of the school board races already had good people on the school board. Maybe the issues, what Kelly said, what I read to you, each district is unique. It's not one size fits all. So what might be an issue for somebody in one town may not be an issue for somebody in another town. And it just goes to show our uniqueness and the fact that that's why we don't want a state-run union controlling every single district, because they don't know what each district requires, wants, or needs as far as their students are concerned. Maybe there's students in a district and families who don't mind CRT. And if the majority doesn't mind, then I guess maybe that's their voting right. They can vote for whom they would like to be in their school board. But for most patriot-minded Americans, we understand the importance of students first and parent-informed school board decisions, transparency. So I think you had alluded to the fact that a lot of the districts that didn't really have the mudslinging were more rural. I think it's because they embrace the same ideology, and there isn't really that portion of constituents that are like, we want CRT in this rural community. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's a lot more like-minded people as opposed to more heavily populated areas where you have a plethora of people and different ideologies.
We have a question in from the audience, and this is more to do like if you're frustrated. So let's say you're from one of those school districts where the student first, or parents first, whatever you call it, candidate failed to win, and they're thinking about packing it in and just homeschooling or creating a charter school. Is that a viable alternative? How might that work, or is it a complementary alternative to what people are doing with regards to the school board?
I think it's actually the better alternative. I think if you can homeschool, that's 100% the way that you should go. And if you look at statistics right now, the amount of homeschoolers, especially in New York State, has just skyrocketed. And there's a lot of homeschooling co-ops that have popped up all around. And I know a lot of teachers who were fired because of their refusal to comply with mandates are now offering their services as far as tutoring for families who have decided to homeschool but feel maybe a little overwhelmed and don't know what they're doing. The community is really coming together because of these issues. I 100% believe homeschooling is the way to go. I think you starve the beast. I think you take away the funding because each district gets money per student for funding. I think you take away that funding and you start raising your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord the way that you feel that you should. And, that's the way to go. But I also understand that that's not realistic or sustainable for every single family in New York State. And I don't want to leave those people out in the cold. And we also, our tax dollars pay for these schools to run. So we absolutely should still have a say, regardless if your child is in a school or not. Your money is still funding that school. It's not, a lot of people say, well, your kids don't even go to school. What do you care? Well, my money is paying for that school. So I absolutely do care as far as the taxpayers, concerns are in play. And so I think that that's why we advocate for homeschooling. We encourage people to do that, but we still fight the beast because we are paying for that. So we do have a say. So it's both sides of the coin in that issue.
Very good. Nancie, thank you. Do you have any closing thoughts? We're about out of time now. I just want to give you a chance to give a final word, maybe where people can go to learn more about this.
Sure. I just want to encourage people to not be discouraged. I mean, like I said before, one win is still a win, people. And we need to not be defeatist and understand that Rome wasn't built in a day and that you can't climb a mountain in one leap. You're in it for the long haul. One of my favorite quotes, which I always leave people with, is eternal. It says, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. It's not one school board election. It's not one rally. It's not one presidential election. It's eternal vigilance. And we, the people, have gotten away from the concept of we, the people, and we've made it about we, the government. And we need to get back to being eternally vigilant and being the people's watchdog.
Well, Nancie, thank you very much, and congratulations on your much more than one victory across the entire greater Western New York region, by the way. It wasn't concentrated in one county or even a couple of neighboring counties. I think it went, didn't go as far as Wayne County, Monroe County.
It did.
Yeah.
We just heard that there were victories in Wayne County. I don't know how many, but I'm trying to compile a list, and I'm very pleased. Franklinville, Forestville, Hilton, there's been a lot.
Yes. So it is the thing that strikes me is, to the extent that a lot of these candidates were not part of the normal system, the normal flow into the town board. That's telling me that there is perhaps a movement out there, and that it's something that the people involved ought to be proud of, because it started from scratch and they succeeded.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you again. Thank you, listeners, watchers, viewers. And remember, if you want to watch this live, then just go to our website, stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com, and you'll get a secret invitation every Thursday morning with the secret again link on how you can watch this show live. And why do you want to watch it live? Because then you can ask the guest your own questions. Put it in the chat room and I'll read it to the guest, just like I did earlier, and you'll see what the guest has to say. So again, go to stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com, go sign up. It's free. Everything is free, and you'll be able to be part of that live audience. If you can't make it, it's noon every Thursday. So if you got a job and you can't make it because you're working, you can always watch it directly on our site, stateofgreaterwesternnewyork.com, or you can watch it on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday at 1:30. Go to our Facebook page, Greater Western New York, and like it, and you'll be informed when it airs. Go to our social media's YouTube channel, also called Greater Western New York, and subscribe to that channel. And again, you'll be notified as soon as it airs. So you can see this any way you want. And I hope that you enjoy it. Nancie, again, thank you very much for being here. And thank you all for being on today's show.